There's a moment in most people's careers when everything shifts. One day, you're stressed about every bill, calculating whether you can afford groceries and gas in the same week. And then suddenly, almost without noticing, you stop checking your bank account before making purchases. It's not luck, it's not inheritance, it's hitting specific income thresholds where your financial anxiety transforms into actual security. And there are three exact numbers where this transformation happens so dramatically that your entire relationship with money fundamentally changes. My name is Devi, and I spend way too much time analyzing income data and figuring out why some people feel broke making $80,000 while others feel comfortable at half that amount. If you're tired of wondering whether you're actually doing okay financially, or if you just want to understand when more money actually starts making a difference in your life, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if this breakdown helps you see where you actually stand. Now, before we dive into these three life-changing income thresholds, let me ask you something. When you think about making more money, what comes to mind? Maybe you picture doubling your salary and assuming all your problems would disappear. Or perhaps you've gotten raises before and been confused when they didn't seem to change anything about your financial stress level. But here's what might surprise you. The people who feel financially secure aren't necessarily the ones making the most money. They're the ones who understand something most people never figure out. Your income doesn't matter nearly as much as the gap between what you earn and what you spend. And there are three specific income levels where that gap becomes wide enough to fundamentally transform how you live. These aren't random numbers I made up. These are thresholds backed by economic data, where financial survival becomes financial stability, where stability becomes comfort, and where comfort becomes actual freedom. The first milestone happens at $75,000 annually. The second occurs around $130,000, and the third level that completely changes your relationship with money hits at $200,000. But here's what's fascinating about these numbers. Most people think making $200,000 means you're just living a slightly upgraded version of a $75,000 lifestyle. They're completely wrong. And this misunderstanding is exactly why so many high earners still feel broke. Let me paint you a picture of what most people think income progression looks like. They imagine it's this perfectly linear process where every extra dollar you earn makes your life proportionally better. Make $50,000, life is okay. Make $100,000, life is twice as good. Make $200,000, life is 4 times better. It makes perfect sense, right? Except it's completely backwards from how money actually works in your real life. The reality is far more nuanced than most people realize, and it explains why you can get a $20,000 raise and somehow still feel just as stressed about money. We live in a world where lifestyle inflation eats raises faster than you can say compound interest. You get promoted, you upgrade your car. You make more money, you move to a nicer place. Your income goes up, but so do your expenses, and you end up right back where you started, just with nicer stuff to stress about. But here's the thing that separates people who build actual financial security from people who just look successful while drowning in debt. Money stops being stressful at specific thresholds where your income finally exceeds your needs by a meaningful amount, not your wants. Your needs. This is basic mathematics that our consumer culture desperately doesn't want you to understand. The secret lies in understanding fixed costs versus discretionary spending. Your rent or mortgage, your car payment, your insurance, your basic utilities, these costs stay relatively stable. But as your income increases past certain thresholds, the percentage of your income consumed by these fixed costs drops dramatically, and that's when everything changes. Let me show you exactly how this works, with some real numbers that might surprise you. Let's say you're making $75,000 per year. In most parts of America, this puts you above the median household income. You should feel comfortable, right? Well, let's run the actual numbers. After federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, and Medicare, you're taking home roughly $56,000 annually. That's about $4,667 per month. Now, let's look at the average costs for a single person or couple trying to live a basic middle-class life. Rent or mortgage for a decent place, you're looking at $1,600 to $2,000 per month, depending on your city. Let's say $1,800. Car payment, insurance, gas, and maintenance, another $700 per month if you're being conservative. Student loans that most college graduates carry, add $400. Health insurance premiums, even with employer contributions, $300. Groceries for eating at home most nights, $500. Utilities, internet, phone, $250. We're at $3,950 per month in just basic, non-negotiable expenses. You have $717 left for everything else: clothes, entertainment, going out, emergencies, savings, retirement, everything. This is why $75,000 is such a critical threshold. Below this number, you're in survival mode. Every unexpected expense is a crisis. Car breaks down, financial disaster, medical bill, credit card debt. Above $75,000, you finally have breathing room. Not luxury, not wealth, just breathing room. That $717 per month of margin is the difference between living paycheck to paycheck and actually having a life. You can start building an emergency fund. You can contribute to retirement beyond the company match. You can go out to dinner without calculating whether you can afford it. But here's where most people make a critical mistake. They hit this threshold and immediately inflate their lifestyle to match their new income. Nicer apartment, newer car, more expensive restaurants. And suddenly, they're right back at zero margin, just with better stuff. What they don't realize is they've just reached the foundation that makes everything else possible. It's like finally learning to swim. The beginning is terrifying, and you feel like you're drowning. But once you reach a certain level of competency, you can actually start enjoying the water instead of just trying not to die. Remember, we're trying to understand when income actually changes your life, and you've just hit the first threshold where financial survival becomes financial stability. But the real magic happens at the next level. The second milestone is $130,000 annually. And here's the part that blows most people's minds. This is where good becomes great in ways that aren't immediately obvious to people who haven't experienced it. Let me break down what happens at this income level. After taxes, you're taking home approximately $92,000 per year. That's about $7,667 per month. Now, here's the kicker. Your fixed costs haven't doubled. Maybe you upgraded to a nicer place, so rent is now $2,400 instead of $1,800. Maybe you got a slightly newer car, so transportation costs are $850 instead of $700. Your other expenses might creep up a bit as you enjoy your success. Let's say your total fixed costs are now $5,000 per month. You have $2,667 left over every single month. That's not just breathing room, that's financial oxygen. This is where life fundamentally transforms in ways that people making less simply cannot comprehend. You can max out your 401k contribution, which is $23,000 per year in 2026. You can fully fund a Roth IRA, another $7,000 annually. You can build a 6-month emergency fund in less than 2 years. You can invest beyond retirement accounts. You can help family members who are struggling. You can make decisions based on what you want to do rather than what you can afford. But more importantly, this is where opportunities start appearing that weren't available before. Want to start a side business? You have capital to invest. Want to go back to school or get a certification? You can afford it without going into debt. Want to take a lower-paying job that's more fulfilling? You have the savings to make that transition safely. At $75,000, you're stable but constrained. At $130,000, you're stable and empowered. That's a massive psychological difference that impacts every aspect of your life. Of your $130,000 income, you're spending about $60,000 on lifestyle and fixed costs. The other $70,000? That's wealth building on autopilot. That's generational change. That's the difference between being middle class and actually building lasting financial security. And here's what's fascinating. The jump from $75,000 to $130,000 doesn't require twice the work or twice the skill. It usually requires strategic career moves, skill development, or changing industries. It's about working smarter, not just harder. But we're not done yet, because there's one more threshold where everything changes again in ways that most people never experience.
The third milestone is $200,000 annually. And this is where wealthy and rich finally start to mean the same thing. At $200,000 per year, you're in the top 10% of American earners. After taxes, you're taking home approximately $136,000 annually. That's $11,333 per month. Even if you've upgraded your lifestyle significantly, nice house at $3,500 per month, nice cars at $1,200 per month, all the premium versions of everything, you're still spending maybe $7,000 per month on your entire life. That leaves $4,333 every single month for wealth building, experiences, and choices. This is where money stops being a consideration for normal life decisions. Grocery shopping? You don't look at prices. Vacation? You book what sounds fun, not what's affordable. Car repair? Annoying, but not financially stressful. Medical copays? Whatever, here's my card. This is also where you start encountering entirely different financial products and opportunities. Private banking, investment minimums you can actually meet, real estate investments, angel investing, business partnerships. The financial world that was completely closed off at lower income levels suddenly opens up. But here's what's most interesting about this threshold. Your relationship with work fundamentally changes. At $75,000, you need your job. At $130,000, you value your job, but could survive losing it. At $200,000, you have options, plural. You can take 6 months off to find the right position. You can negotiate from a position of strength. You can turn down opportunities that don't align with your values. This psychological freedom affects everything about how you show up in the world. Some of you are probably thinking, okay, Davey, but what about cost of living differences? What about inflation? Fair questions. These numbers assume you're living in an average cost of living area. If you're in San Francisco or New York, add 30% to all these thresholds. If you're in a low cost of living area, you might feel these effects at 80% of these numbers.
The principles remain the same, even if the exact figures shift based on location. And yes, inflation matters. The $75,000 threshold today was probably more like $60,000 a decade ago. But here's the thing. These aren't static numbers. They represent the point where your income exceeds your basic needs by enough to create actual margin. As inflation pushes costs up, it also tends to push wages up, maintaining these relative thresholds. What doesn't change is the psychological and practical transformation that happens when you cross them. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Davey, I'm nowhere near these numbers. Does this mean I'm doomed? Absolutely not, and this is crucial to understand. These milestones represent where significant changes happen, but progress toward them still matters enormously. If you're at $55,000 working toward $75,000, every extra $5,000 reduces your financial stress measurably. If you're at $95,000 working toward $130,000, you're building momentum that will compound. The key is understanding that income alone doesn't determine financial security. Someone making $75,000 with controlled expenses can feel more secure than someone making $150,000 with luxury lifestyle creep. The goal isn't just to make more money, it's to create a widening gap between what you earn and what you need. That gap is where financial security lives. Here's what happens when you finally cross that magical $200,000 threshold. Your first reaction is usually relief mixed with imposter syndrome. You'll think, "Am I really worth this much?" Followed immediately by, "Wait, why did it take so long to get here?" But after the initial adjustment period, something profound shifts. You stop thinking about money as something you need to manage every day and start thinking about it as a tool for designing the life you want. Want to help your parents retire? You can do that. Want to fund your kids' education without loans? Possible. Want to retire early? Achievable. Want to work part-time to pursue passion projects? Viable. These aren't fantasies anymore. They're planning exercises. So there you have it. 3 income milestones that genuinely transform your financial life. $75,000 when survival becomes stability. $130,000 when stability becomes empowerment. And $200,000 when empowerment becomes freedom. The math is straightforward, even if getting there requires patience and strategy. Your income today doesn't determine your income tomorrow, but understanding these thresholds helps you know what you're working toward and what actually changes when you get there. Start building toward the next milestone today, because 5 years from now, you'll either be thanking yourself or wondering what could have been.